Okay, Morgan, what do you have for us today?
Okay, so the story I'm covering today, it was a huge request by one of our listeners, Seth. Seth, buddy, this one is for you.
And just a side note about Seth is a real one.
Seth is dope as fuck.
Seth is like the when we say like we know you guys, I know Seth and I know like his family dynamic. And
Yeah.
I love his shirt that he wears for us on the tarot card.
Yeah, he's so funny. So he's like, he has a wife, he's only girls, right?
Yeah, all
Or
girls.
something like that. He's daughters. And he ordered merch and it was the tarot card t-shirt. And his original post in the Facebook group was like, he was like, I walked around and all of a sudden everybody in my house wants a Creeps and Crimes merch. I guess I know what I'm getting for them birthday.
Right? I'm like, this is the biggest girl dad energy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's dope as shit. So anyway, Seth, this one's for you.
This one's for you, friend.
It's been on my radar. I just needed some time to do it right. It's an insane story, and I know each time, Taylar, each time I cover an extraterrestrial case, I'm always like, this is the one. Like, this is the most believable. This one's got it. Like, this is my favorite.
Yeah, you always do that.
Scratch all of that.
Okay. Throw them out the window.
Because this is the new winner for me.
Oh, shit.
This is the story of Terry Lovelace and his experience at Devil's Den State Park, Arkansas.
Okay.
So a little bit about Terry. Terry Lovelace was born in 1955 and grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri.
I like that we should everybody start calling it St. Louis.
St. Louis, Missouri. He had a normal life and would actually describe it as being kind of bland, which I don't know if I would call it bland because around the age of 8, he started seeing these, quote, monkey people in his room at night.
Okay.
But with age, the monkey people kind of disappeared as he grew up. Once graduating high school, Terry joined the United States Air Force in 1973. He was posted at Whiteman Air Force Base, which is located in Missouri and is previously known as Sedalia Air Force Base. So Whiteman Air Force Base served primarily as a B-2 bomber base and missile base.
Wow.
It is home of the 351st Strategic Missile Wing and home to numerous Minuteman II nuclear-armed ICBM silos.
If you know what that means.
All I know is the word nuclear.
Yeah.
And silos.
I bet everybody's like, that's awesome. And we're like, what does that mean?
And so these nuclear silos, these missiles are spread throughout the area. It's like a very rural base, very rural area.
Got it.
While enlisted, he trained as a medic and an EMT. And from the majority of his time with the United States Air Force until about 1979, Terry worked as a first responder at the emergency room of Whiteman Air Force Base Hospital. Terry worked the graveyard shift from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., and it was a base medic ambulance job, which he worked almost every single night with his partner that he refers to as Toby, which isn't his real name, but that's what
like
he
an alias.
talks to him. Yeah, an alias for him. Terry and Toby saw some strange shit, to say the least.
Right.
After spending 6 years enlisted, Terry decided to pursue a college education with the intent of landing an occupation as a lawyer after school. He attended Park University, where he got his bachelor's degree in psychology and graduated cum laude. After undergrad, Terry went to Western Michigan University, where he earned his, this is a lawyer thing, Juris Doctor. I think that's how you say it. Lexi Green, correct me.
Let us know, girl.
He headed straight for the bar and passed. Terry was a lawyer. He worked in private practice, mainly civil litigation and criminal defense, in addition to being a felony prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
He's kind of shit. Terry was really interested in healthcare law. He is a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives and is a certified healthcare risk manager. But his time in the courtroom just wasn't enough for Terry. He wanted more. He wanted more responsibilities, more priorities. Therefore, he entered public service and became the Assistant Attorney General for the United States Territory of American Samoa.
Oh, wow.
As well as the General Counsel for Lyndon B. Johnson Tropical Medical Center, which is the only hospital there.
Wow.
He was also president of the American Samoa Bar Association for like lawyers and stuff. So this dude was kind of the shit. Like, he had the credentials out the ass, for sure. His last years before retirement, he was the state's attorney for Vermont's Board of Medical Practice.
Holy shit.
Terry retired in 2012 at the age of 57. Today, Terry is still alive, living in Dallas, Texas with his wife of 45 years. They have a family, and when Terry is not with them, He is going on speaking tours to tell about his experience with something unnatural and out of this world.
I'm sorry, but for someone to be that, like certified, I don't know what the word I'm looking at is, like, have that many credentials and still take their name to use, like, speak about this shit. It's real.
It says a lot.
I can't wait to hear what it is.
So the first encounter we're going to talk about is the Whiteman encounter. Terry's story starts back when he was enlisted at the Whiteman Air Force Base, January of 1975. At this point, Terry was going on year 2 of the Air Force, and like we said, he was a trained EMT and medic that ran ambulances. His partner, who always did shift with him, Toby, was extremely interested in astronomy. Terry refers to him as being an amateur astronomer.
Okay.
He knew all about constellations in space and would love the graveyard shift because really they weren't all that busy. Therefore, both of them were able to stay up through the night. They would sit outside or on top of the ambulance. They would look up at the sky and just stargaze. This was one of their favorite things. The typical shift was pretty uneventful, but this night in January was quite the opposite. It started how their usual shifts start, sitting outside the ambulance, chatting about constellations and planets, when around 2 a.m. they received a call that a missile technician had fallen into one of the missile silos on base.
Oh, shit.
The location of the silos was 18 miles away across rows and rows of soybean fields. Of course, Terry and Toby jumped back into the ambulance and they took off headed in the direction of the fallen missile technician. But when they arrived, it wasn't their typical emergency scene. In fact, the area was crawling with armed security police who were not Air Force members.
I'm sorry?
When Terry and Toby tried to pull the ambulance closer, these armed guards stopped them and told them that they are not permitted to come any closer. So they obliged because they're in the military. They follow rules.
Right.
They looked at each other, absolutely clueless, and then they looked back at all of the commotion going on in front of them. And that's when they saw it. Blended into the dark night sky, hovering over top of the missile silos, was a diamond-shaped craft. Terry said it was about the size of a van. It was matte black, so dark that he could hardly see it, and it just sat there, hovering, for about 15 minutes. Toby and Terry were speechless. This unidentified object hovering right in front of their eyes with absolute chaos from the armed guards just running around below. The craft then shot off to the east from a dead stop to the speed of a bullet without even accelerating. As soon as the craft left, they were approached by security, being debriefed and told, quote, in no uncertain terms that they were not to talk about or disclose anything of what they had just witnessed.
Yeah, make me sign the papers.
Yeah. Yeah. Try me.
Yeah, whatever.
And of course, Terry and Toby are like, bro, what the fuck? What did we just witness? The explanation given, the explanation given was that it was just a type of experimental helicopter.
Oh, okay. It's a weather balloon.
It's a new helicopter. It's this triangle shaped matte black helicopter. It's Tesla's version.
It blends in with the sky.
You didn't know in the 1970s.
You don't know about that?
What's going on? But the two stargazers knew. That was weird. It was no helicopter. They knew. They knew what it was. For the next 2 years, Terry and Toby worked the same graveyard shift, and they had become pretty good friends. In this point, they were both married. They both lived on base with their wives, and their wives were actually besties. Like, they were close. Yeah. You know, that kind of dynamic. But as us.
It's literally us if the boys worked in grave night, because we'd be like, what are you doing? Yeah. You want to hang out?
Right. But as all 20-year-old boys do at the time, they needed a day off. So they took a vacation leave to do some camping. We know Toby is the amateur astronomer, but what we don't know is that Terry loved photography, and he also was a huge runner. He would run miles and miles every day.
Is he related to you?
Maybe. Toby suggested they take their leave to a state park known as Devil's Den. It had the perfect high plateaus for stargazing that checks off Toby's list, and it had so much nature, wildlife, waterfalls, and caves, which was perfect for taking pictures, which is a check mark for Terry's list.
Right.
It was the perfect leave of vacation for them, for the early 20-year-old boys. So let's talk a little bit about Devil's Den.
Okay.
Devil's Den is an Arkansas icon. You know, I used to say Arkansas.
No, you didn't.
Well, like growing up, Arkansas.
Oh my God.
Like, you know. No, you don't know.
I don't know.
Like in like second grade.
No.
Arkansas.
I don't know.
Those that get it, get it.
What is it? Explain
Those
it.
that don't. That's just how it's spelled, like Arkansas with the S at the end.
Oh, I was thinking like Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas. Yeah, I always said Arkansas. Interesting.
Yeah.
Devil's Den spanned an entire 2,500 acres in Washington County, West Fork, Arkansas. It's located within the Lee Creek Valley and was established as a state park in the 1930s. And it also makes up the southwestern part of the Ozarks.
Ooh.
It's known for its history with the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC, because of its beautiful stone structures that were built into the area via native materials in the early 30s.
Wow.
It has, from what I read, a top-notch mountain bike trail that leads from Devil's Den into Ozark National Forest. People come all over to see Devil's Den, whether it's hiking, camping, mountain biking, or horseback riding. It is a very popular destination in the warmer months.
I'm scared for what you're about to tell me, dude.
Sorry, no, I literally just can't breathe. But its most popular destination yet is its 8-acre man-made lake. What the park is known for is some super unique characteristics like rock formations and caverns. Throughout the park is at least 60 crevice caves with unique sandstone and limestone, something that never happens, which actually is the geology that stands behind the name Devil's Den, or so they say. The state park protects the largest sandstone crevice area in the United States.
Whoa.
It was identified during the Great Depression as a site for a state park. Basically, what that means is that the state stole it from people when they were unable to pay their property taxes during the harsh times.
Great.
It was put together by the young men working for the Civilian Conservation Corps, who all lived in military-style barracks and constructed many recreational facilities, including pavilions, trails, and the dam that forms Lake Devil from Lee Creek.
Got it.
So let's let that sit in our minds that this area was built up by military.
Great. Another red flag.
There is a cave in the park called the Devil's Icebox, which is actually named from the cold air that comes rushing out of the cave.
What?
So they say this is a result of the air entering the cave from a higher elevation, and it's cooled as it passes through the mountain, releasing on the other opening of the cave, I guess. It's like an altitude thing. It's a strange place nonetheless, and I'm not sure I believe the name came from its abundance and rare occurrence of sandstone and limestone together.
Yeah, no.
But if that's what they want to say, then okay.
Yeah, whatever y'all say.
Whatever you want to say. So let's talk about the encounter.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm so excited.
Okay, ready? So Terry and Toby headed towards Devil's Den, June of 1977, for a 2-night camping trip. It was a popping month for the state park. So, in order to avoid the crowds, the two decided that they would go deep into an off-limits nature preserve.
Oh, of course.
And set up camp there.
For sure.
Big emphasis on off-limits. This was pretty far away from the main camping area, which meant they would have more peace and quiet, as well as better scenery. But once settled in, Terry was pretty upset because he had forgotten his camera.
Oh, no.
He eventually got over it because there was just so much more to do, and he could really just be one with nature rather than only seeing the views through his camera lens.
Yep.
The first thing they did when they arrived was take a long hike. Sounds like my mom. No time to waste. Let's roll.
Let's
Which
go.
After a day of travel and setting up camp and a hike, you're pretty freaking exhausted. When it got dark, the two did what they do every night. They sat outside and they stared up at the stars. The forest was alive. Crickets were chirping, frogs were croaking, and the leaves were rustling. Around 9 p.m., Toby noticed something. 3 stars on the horizon forming a perfect triangle.
Oh, God.
Well, they thought they were stars. They were not sure if they were just so tired or if those stars were moving. And were they moving in perfect unison? Or were they imagining this?
Oh, no.
This 3-star constellation came barreling towards them, and before they knew it, it was hovering directly over top of their campsite. The forest that was alive not even 30 seconds prior was dead silent. There were no sounds besides their own heartbeat. When the object approached, they were really anxious. They were scared. But as it hovered, it's like they became disinterested in it. And then suddenly they got really drowsy. Terry explains it as not being tired, but almost sedated. The object left and they sat there quietly until around midnight. They then decided to sleep whatever happened off, so the two headed into the tent. 3 hours later, at exactly 3 a.m., Terry woke up to these multicolored lights that were lighting up the entire tent and made it seem like daytime. The lights were flickering and dancing. Terry knew it was 3 a.m. and that the only explanation for any of this would be if that object came back. Terry knew. So I'm going to read a direct explanation from Terry himself about what happened next. And this is from mysteriousuniverse.com. But before I do that, Taylar, I want to show you what he saw.
Okay. Oh, whoa. No, that is really complex.
Very complex.
It's a straight up like 3D triangle, but thin.
With like windows and like
panelings. It's got like tons of windows. Like if you were looking like at a mall, like when they have those like cube windows or like people have in their bathrooms. And then on top, it's got like observation decks, it looks like.
Yeah.
And then there's like a panel in the front, and on the like 3 corners, there's a panel. But on the bottom, on the underside, it's like a light source in the like direct underneath of it. And then it looks like it's like speckled, like it would be resembling the sky at night. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's more of a matte vibe. And then I don't know if they actually saw people walking around in it, but there's like little pictures. But then underneath the sketch, there's where their camp is. Yeah. And so you could see the 2 of them, and it's kind of like an opening.
It is like a giant ship.
And it's the most detailed
and what
thing
it
I've
looks
ever
like
seen.
To me is if you took like a car dealership and you lifted it up into the sky.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
looks
is.
like to me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Terry's explanation. That he pushed Toby aside so that they could both look outside toward the meadow. There was an enormous UFO, as large as a 5-story office building. It was a triangle with each leg being about a city block in length.
Holy shit, it looks like where the boys work.
It was 50 feet tall and sat stationary, 30 feet over the meadow floor. There was a noise too. It was a low bass hum or drone. Not so much loud as it was powerful. It was like standing next to a running diesel train engine or a large industrial machine.
Oh my God.
We saw what I first took to be children walking under the meadow underneath the triangle, or around the meadow underneath the triangle. There was a column of white light, about 30 feet in diameter, shining down from the center of triangle. And we watched as these little people walked into the light and just dissolved.
Oh my God.
One by one until they were gone. The hum stopped and the corner lights all returned to brilliant white. The white cylinder from the middle stopped, and the thing rose about like a hot air balloon. It made a 1/3 clockwise rotation and continued its ascent, picking up speed until it was high in the sky and then gone. While we were apathetic earlier, now we're scared out of our wits.
Yeah.
We abandoned our campsite and ran to the car and drove back to base. Terry and Toby got back to base and are immediately hospitalized for 2 days at the Whiteman Air Force Base Hospital for severe dehydration.
Oh my God.
They are unsure whether it was the lights or the radiation, but both of them had red, raw skin, almost like a sunburn, covering their bodies and even underneath of their feet, like the soles of their feet.
You're kidding me.
They were burnt. During the hospital stay, Terry claims both him and Toby were separated and interrogated on more than one occasion by men who claimed to be from the Office of Special Investigations.
What were they wearing?
Terry, what are you wearing, Office from Special Investigations?
Yeah, literally.
A black suit?
Khakis? No, it's a black suit, isn't it?
Terry and Toby told the story how it was. They went there to take pictures and stargaze and hike and just take a little vacation from the work life. But they also mentioned that Terry forgot his camera. And they didn't stay longer than 24 hours because of the giant freaking UFO that has their entire bodies in 3rd-degree burns.
That literally murdered their skin.
This same organization then shredded the homes and cars of Terry and Toby, who were living on base with their wives at the time, hoping to find any sort of evidence that they could get rid of, and in desperate search for Terry's camera. Even though he forgot it, they didn't believe him. They thought that he was hiding it, that he did get pictures.
Why are y'all so torn up about this?
Right. Like, are you worried about their well-being, or are you trying to cover something?
Right.
The Office of Special Investigations ordered the two to have no further contact with the other. Toby was then assigned to another base immediately after release of the hospital. This event would leave Terry with intense nightmares and other psychological effects for the rest of his life. Terry says, "Ever since 1979, I am uncomfortable being outside in open spaces, especially after dark. I sleep with a light or the television on. I keep a loaded .380, I don't know how to say guns, by my bedside table and a high-intensity flashlight. I am uncomfortable around elderly women of Asian descent for some odd reason. I feel anxious at the mall when we walk past a window display with naked mannequins in the window.
What?
Something bad happened to us at Devil's Den. I just can't remember. And then there's the dreams. Because of Terry's social status between law and medicine and freaking assistant attorney generals, him and his wife decided that this needed to be kept to themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The subject of UFOs is very taboo, and being overheard discussing a topic like that in the kind of positions that Terry was in would lead to really bad negative circumstances. And with that, he was also basically threatened by the officials of secretive operations or whatever they were called themselves. But they always found themselves discussing the topic with each other, Terry and his wife. And they started noticing a pattern. Each day that they discussed the incidents or just the idea of UFOs or extraterrestrial in general, Terry would have vivid nightmares every single time. They were horrific dreams that would disturb his sleep. They were night terrors. But when the subject was avoided, the nightmares would kind of dissipate, and he would only then experience about 1 to 2 a year.
Wow.
So eventually, they stopped talking about it. But this went on for over 30 years. Like we said before, Terry loved to run. He was a devoted runner, and he would run about 3 to 4 miles a day. After his trip to Devil's Den, he started noticing something a little odd. During each of his runs, right around the 2-mile mark, there was an area in his right leg that would go completely numb. It was right above his knee, and one time he was curious enough that he grabbed like a push pin, right? Mm-hmm. And he started kind of like pricking himself to like feel where he could feel, where he couldn't feel. Mm-hmm. And from this, he was able to map out that his numbness was a perfect circle. When he visited his doctor for a checkup, he brought it up, but the doctor was like, I'm sure everything's fine. Like, I really wouldn't worry too much about it, you know?
Oh, my God, yeah.
So Terry did just that. He never gave his numb spot another thought until October 22nd of 2012, when he had a bad fall at 57 years old, sending him to the emergency room. The doctors routinely ordered x-rays on Terry's leg to rule out any broken bones. And what they found was one of the strangest, most unexplainable things. The x-ray of Terry's right leg, right above the knee, showed an anomalous bit of metal. It was so strange that even the radiologist came to him and asked if he could examine his body for like any type of scars. Because surrounding the bit of metal was no amount of like scar tissue at all, like in his leg. There was no signs of anything, right, of how it got there. So I just want to like mention, like when you get x-rays, like you go in, they check, and then that's it. Like the radiologist looks over it and then it gets sent to a doctor, Like they never go back to the patient and like they want to have a conversation, and like it usually takes actually a day or two to get your results.
Right.
But this was quick. It was so uncommon for radiologists to personally come talk to the patient, but that is what happened in this case because this radiologist was so baffled. He had never seen such a thing. The radiologist was almost positive that it was a man-made object about the size of a fingernail with 2 wires attached hanging down. He also compared it to an RIFD compute device. Oh. It's like a chip, I think.
Oh, okay.
Also in the lower leg, he noticed a collection of more foreign objects below Terry's calf muscle. Like we said, the radiologist was insisting on examining the body for scar tissue because the object in Terry's body could not be there without some type of incision. He said that, this is a quote, "It's impossible to breach the integrity of the skin without leaving a scar. I have never seen this before. I have been a radiologist for 23 years and I've just never seen it before. It's almost disturbing." So Taylar, these are the x-rays. So this this is above his knee.
Are you kidding me?
I don't know if you can see it. It's like a little like chip with 2 wires.
I see that, yeah.
Like 2 wires.
It's 2 wires hanging directly down, and it's like is that the box of them like showing where it is, or is that like a box that's in him?
That's in him.
It's a perfect triangle. I mean,
perfect square.
Sorry.
And this is the one in his calf.
What? What is that?
I have no idea.
It looks like a fan blades.
Like it looks like a petal, like flowers almost, kind of.
Yeah, or like on the back of a boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Yeah, like a blade.
Oh, I see that.
I hate that.
So Terry wanted I'm going to post all these on Instagram.
Yeah, you guys can see them.
Terry wanted the metal pieces removed and examined. So he set a surgery date, but he never went through with it. The night before his surgery, he received a visit from a woman hybrid. He described her as a half classic gray, half human. He said her size and her facial features reminded him of a small, short, older woman of Japanese descent.
That's where it is. I was wondering where it was coming from.
And that this woman hybrid was wearing a wig that did not fit her and had on very large sunglasses. Basically, she threatened him. She told him that no scientist or doctor here on Earth will be able to remove that implant without harming you, and that he should not go through with the surgery. She told him they would come and remove it in the middle of the night and that he wouldn't feel a thing. And then she also said, if you talk about these things that are in you, your government will kill you. What? So he kind of drew a sketch of what he saw. It kind of reminds me of a Guy Fire.
Yeah, that hair.
Guy, whatever his name is.
Yeah, with the fire shirts.
Yeah. So Terry canceled his surgery, only to reveal weeks later that the implant was removed after further x-rays. It was gone.
You're kidding me.
It was gone.
This is absolutely freaking wild.
It is. But are you wondering about Toby?
I was just about to ask you, where is Toby?
So Terry actually reconnected with Toby in later years, and kind of told him that whatever happened that night, or he was just revealing that whatever happened that night, that Toby was the one that got the worst of it. Toby received double what Terry did.
No, he didn't.
Toby, I saw on a couple sources, this is, I don't know if it's true or not, but we don't even know who Toby is. But it said that Toby kind of lost his mind, ended up homeless, and died on the streets.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. But during this conversation between Terry and Toby, he reassured Toby that he wasn't crazy at all, and that it really did happen exactly how Toby remembered it. And Hypnosis revealed that. So when I read through this, I kind of just jotted down notes from this Hypnosis interview with Point of Convergence. It's a website. It's actually a podcast. So I hope that this isn't too hectic.
Okay.
But basically, it's kind of describing what Terry went through.
Okay.
So he said that the UFO was just hanging there above their campsite, and that him and Toby, well, they weren't scared, that it was more like seeing an old friend. It was huge, hundreds of feet across. They were taken into the spaceship, and Terry was in awe. He was like, this is, one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. But Toby acted like he had been there. And he was kind of leading Terry on to being like, well, what do you think? Like, what do you know? Like, go check that out. Check this out, kind of ordeal.
Okay.
He knew so basically Toby knew the entire time it wasn't a 3-star constellation. Like, he knew exactly what the fuck it was.
Yeah, and he was obsessed with this stuff.
Right. Inside, Terry said that it was 5 stories tall with 3 saucers inside. Like, if you think of a big giant like military plane, and they have little planes in them, or like a big giant cruise ship.
Yeah.
And that there was also a crowd of people as if they were just waiting in line for their turn on the table. There were humanoids there too, but there was also a species that he had never seen before. And these creatures, or these aliens, were dressed in these like tan spacesuits, almost like military. He was guided to this medical table, but on his way, lighting the hall, were these giant fish tanks. And so the person that's walking him through hypnosis was like trying to focus on that. They're like, well, what do you see? Like, let's focus on the fish tanks. What's in them? Yeah. And Terry was like, well, they look like they're filled with these like floating reptilian creatures. And he's like, well, what's the water look like? And he's like, the water's pink. And he's like, take a closer look, go closer to them. And Terry goes closer and is getting pushed through this hypnosis. And then he then implies that these creatures weren't creatures at all, but were actually human beings floating in this pink water.
Was it blood water?
I have no idea. But remember, he said that he can't stand going through like aisles and stuff. That's why. Terry, after walking through that hallway, was then placed on the table, and anytime he tried to scream, nothing would come out. The being that came to examine him was different, a different entity that he saw out in the like main area. It was more insect-like. He described it almost like a praying mantis, but like not to the extent, kind of. They then inserted different tools and knives into Terry, treating him like a lab rat. This insect entity, or whatever you want to call it, became very frustrated with Terry's reactions. And then he began to like telepathically communicate with Terry, and Terry heard his voice for the very first time. He said, "We are not here to hurt you. You'll be taken back to where you are. You're not going to remember a thing. Like, there's no reason to scream. Quit trying to scream."
Right, like, we're not going to hurt you.
And Terry interpreted this later on through like his book and whatnot. He said that like, I just don't think they understand humans. They don't understand fear. And they're very logical. And they're like, why are you screaming? Like, you're not going to remember it. Like, what do you know? Fine. You're not going to remember it. Everything's fine. Like, just stop screaming. Like, just sit there.
It's kind of like how spirits are. How like spirits have way less control of their emotions than we do.
Like, there's just like no tolerance here for our
zero tolerance
for our bullshit. And then this mantis
for our bullshit.
Touched for our bullshit, getting
for this earthling bullshit,
knives stuck up your face. He touched Terry's right temple, and the next thing Terry remembers is waking up in the tent. But what I didn't mention is that this hypnosis didn't happen later on in life. This hypnosis happened that day they were in the hospital after this entire event took place.
What?
And it happened by the secretive officials,
the men in black.
Yeah, the men in freaking black.
Oh my God.
Allegedly they had drugged them and they walked them through hypnosis, and throughout the entire hypnosis they were almost trying to like hypnotize him into not even believing his own self.
Oh.
So like they were like turning him like different directions than he should have, and like they wanted to know what he saw, and they were hoping through this hypnosis, like at the very end, they're kind of like, you know, none of this is real.
Doesn't that sound crazy?
This is this is crazy. Like, this was just a nightmare. But they weren't expecting Terry to wake up and remember it. And Terry remembered everything.
Oh my God. So what about Toby? Did Toby remember it all?
Toby remembered it all, and it drove him crazy.
That's what drove him mad. Wow.
It drove him mad. Yeah. So they were just trying to convince him that what he saw wasn't real. But after retiring, Terry decided to, you know, write a book about his encounter, and it's titled The Incident at Devil's Den, a true story by Terry Lovelace, former Assistant Attorney General. In the book, he basically puts fire under the government's ass, calling them out for being involved in covering shit up and threatening him.
Terry, I think we would be best friends.
His book is a bestseller on Amazon. He has been featured in numerous podcast interviews, Netflix documentaries, etc. Terry Lovelace also travels the globe and hosts seminars where he presents his entire case as a first-hand account. But before I finish, I kind of want to insert my final thoughts here. I think that, well, first off, you can't shove Terry and Toby off as a crazy person.
No.
Like, they have the credentials. Like, they were, you know, they were highly organized people. They had military training. And I think what had happened, either Toby summoned him to that campsite themselves, or they both were summoned some way to this campsite. And for them to be who they are and like forget their camera, and it said on there like they forgot a lot of other things too, that it just didn't, that they had listed out that they had the intent to bring with them but forgot. It's just very odd. It's out of character for them.
Right.
And they're really
especially
organized,
military people.
really organized people. Exactly. And then they're also like, let's go to this restricted area and set up camp. Like,
who
they're
does that?
trained to follow rules. They're rule followers.
Yeah. They backed off whenever there was a UFO hovering the silo that they were needing to get into to treat a service member. Let's go to
this restricted area of this state park and let's set up camp there so it's quiet and it's peaceful.
I have to read this book.
Yeah. So I think that they were somehow like sloppily like summoned to this area, and whatever brought them there only cared about one thing, and that was getting them to the time and the place that they needed to be in order to be intercepted the way that they did. I mean, 2 males together for 2 different UFO encounters, that never happens.
That doesn't happen.
That does not happen. And I think that that's the most terrifying part of the story. A lot of people try to debunk Terry's story, stating that he just remembers too many details and it sounds so made up. But Terry said that once he knew the Specials Operations was investigating him, like right after the hospital, he began to write down every single thing in chronological order.
Yep.
He kept notes of it. He knew anytime he had a nightmare and it bring back a little bit of a memory,
write it down.
And that's how he got his story today. And this, like I said, this Office of Special Operations sounds like the damn Men in Black.
It is absolutely Men in Black.
But
there's no doubt about it.
I also do think that, is it cracking again?
Yeah, sorry, our table's cracking, y'all. So we're
We have
trying
a glass
our best.
table. We just squeeze it with mics and it just cracks. I do think that Toby. I don't know if like Toby wasn't. I don't know. I think he plays some type of like
that's what I
sinister
was about
part
to
in the
say.
story. Like he was obsessed with the stars, and they had the graveyard shift. He had him sitting out every night. He was teaching him about planets and constellations, and like he happened to pick this place. He happened to pick the campsite. Then he happened to just disappear after it all. He got sent away.
The main thing for me is that like, okay, so he is homeless. Okay, where's his wife? Why is his name hidden?
That's why I think he's not. I don't
think he's real.
He was. You don't think he's real?
I don't think he was a real. I think he was a government implemented hybrid.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he died as a homeless person. Like I think he played this like sinister role in getting Terry where he needed to be.
But like, why Terry? Like, what is it? His intellectual ability? Right. Is it that he was a rule follower?
Right.
What is it?
Yeah.
And why separate them? I get why separate them for questioning on things like this, but also I would love to see the records about what he remembered, or if they actually ever did all the things that they did to Toby. That they did to Terry to Toby.
Yeah. I don't know. It is a crazy story, and
I definitely, hey Terry, if you're listening, we're Creeps and Crimes podcast.
Terry,
we would love to interview you. And I have a lot of questions about your friend Toby, more so than the actual encounter itself.
Yeah, like we got that shit down. We won't. That's something that's really repetitive for you.
Yeah, you talk about it all the time. Let's give you a break. Have a glass of wine with us.
Let's talk about Toby.
After 75 hard is up, glass of wine. Let's talk about it.
We'll
girl talk. You want to sit on the couch right here in the center. You.
Right here in the center.
I'll order us. I'll finally invest in a new mic for you, Tyre.
Just for you.
What's his name? Terry. I'm drunk.
Just for you, Terry. And Seth, you can come too, bud.
Honestly, just come.
Just come. We'll get to the bottom of this.
We'll get to the bottom of it together.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, definitely gonna email Terry, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm putting that on my to-do list for tomorrow.
Yeah,
and I'll be like, hi, I'm Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan with Creeps and Crimes podcast, the alien host.
Yeah, I am the...
I'm the alien host.
Have you ever read how I structure like messages from you to people?
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Morgan. I'm the paranormal and conspiracy specialist.
The specialist. I'm the technician.
Yeah, guys. Good Lord, it's so funny.
Anyway, crazy story. It's got the proof for me. That's all I got to say.
I cannot wait to read this book.
And I love that he was like, well, I'm retired now. Let's tell the world.
Yeah, let me go ahead. And y'all never made me sign anything.
Right.
So whatever.
Or he's breaking them.
And if you did, oh well, what are you going to do? Kill me now that the whole world knows?
Right.
Good luck.
Like I'm already 70.
And I would love to know more about that conversation with the hybrid that came forward and was like, your own government will kill you. Like, okay, tell me more about that.
So that's actually a entire seminar topic that's coming on August 8th.
Right after season 3 launch. Hi,
yeah, it's on his website.
I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot on it because he's like, building up.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Launch. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Because I bet other people want to know more about it too.
And we're going to be like, hey, by the way, interesting. We launch around the same time. You want to preview on ours?
Honestly, Terry, do you just want to come and be in the podcast?
Creeps and Crimes and Terry. Creeps, Crimes, and Terry.
Creeps, Crimes, and Terry. Anyway, that's all I got, Taylar. You are up.
It's my turn.